Hello, my name's Pike. I'm a 26-year-old straight white male, and I'm a men's rights advocate. I know what you're thinking. Unbelievable, incredible, a straight white man being a men's rights advocate? But in the next few minutes, I'm going to try to explain to you why I think that every man, especially male feminists, should be an MRA. First, let's clear up some misconceptions. No, I don't hate women. No, I'm not a homophobe or a transphobe. Yes, I do know what the definition of feminism is, and I'm also not ashamed to admit that I have lived a very privileged life in my time. So why be a men's rights advocate? Well, the truth is, I wish I didn't have to, but I've discovered that saying you advocate for men's rights in feminist communities produces a pretty similar reaction to saying Black Lives Matter in the rest of society. Well, wait, don't you mean all lives matter? Why don't you advocate for everyone's rights? Of course all lives matter, and I do advocate for everyone. But the very fact that saying you advocate for men specifically has become such a taboo and controversial thing to say is one of many reasons why I have gone ahead and adopted the MRA label. So then the question really becomes, why not advocate for men's rights under the banner of feminism? Why do you need to join a movement that distances itself from feminism? Well, several reasons really, but I'll focus on just a few. First and foremost, there's a great deal of controversy about the role of men in feminism and whether they should be allowed a voice in the feminist community in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that all feminists hate men. I know that most feminists don't hate men. Feminists have fathers, they have brothers, boyfriends, sons even. But there's a lot of concern that men within the feminist community will speak over or silence or distract from the issues that women face when men discuss issues that men face within the feminist community. And I think that's a valid enough concern, but anyone who's even remotely familiar with the MRA community online knows that oftentimes MRAs do confront, argue with, and sometimes even silence feminist voices. So why don't MRAs stick to their own spaces? Well, there are plenty of reasons for that, but first and foremost is the issue of male privilege. Feminism, and intersectional feminism in particular, teaches that men, and especially white men, are privileged over virtually every other demographic in society. But Pike, I thought you said earlier that as a straight white man you'd lived a very privileged life. And I have. And that's exactly why I am an MRA. Because there are a lot of straight white men out there who are not as privileged as I am, who don't have an internet connection, who don't have a camera to record videos to speak about men's issues, who don't even have a home, who are contemplating killing themselves, who are dying at work. Feminists will have you look at CEOs and politicians and notice that about 80 to 90% of these people in positions of power are men, most of them white. What they won't do is look at the number of suicides, homeless, and workplace fatalities and have you notice that also 80 to 90% of these people are men. Feminists will tell you that feminism is about helping women achieve equal rights to those of men. Can you think of any rights in society that men have that women don't? In the United States, there's legislation protecting women from female genital mutilation, but there is no law protecting infant baby boys from circumcision. Now, a lot of people think this isn't that big of a deal, but as someone who was a feminist throughout all of high school and college, I think this is a pretty serious feminist issue. When feminists talk about men, two of the most common issues they raise is the fact that men are not allowed to be sensitive, and that men don't respect a woman's consent when it comes to sexual intercourse. To me, this seems like a no-brainer. What better way to help men understand the value of consent and be more sensitive than to stop cutting off the most sensitive part of a man's body without his consent? When feminists are campaigning for things like free the nipple and ban bossy and fighting manspreading, while there's still this glaring legal discrepancy between the rights of men and women on an issue that seems so fundamentally related to consent and male sensitivity, it makes a lot of MRAs question just where the feminist priorities lie. Is feminism really a movement for legal equality between the genders? Or is it more about benefiting women while neglecting the many issues that men face in society? Now, feminists will often bring up the wage gap, where supposedly women make 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes. But if you take a closer look at the statistics, you'll find that all but 5 cents of that gap can be explained by the choices that women make in their careers. What kinds of professions they go into, how many hours they work a week, how many vacation days that they'll take. On the other hand, there does exist a 60% criminal sentencing gap between men and women, where men are imprisoned for 60% longer than women for the same crime. This cannot be explained by men's choices or any other external factors. Again, when we hear feminists in a huge swath of the mainstream media addressing a 23% wage gap that really is not entirely accurate, while virtually no one has ever heard of a criminal sentencing gap that is punishing men for 1.5 times longer than women, a lot of MRAs start to question, what are the real priorities here? And if a man, be he an MRA or a male feminist or just some random guy, brings up one of these issues in a feminist space, they're often immediately shouted down as being a misogynist. They'll be accused of being an MRA, whether they are one or not, and told that they should shut up, check their privilege, and voice support for the people who need support most. I think a lot of this stems from the idea that when a white man speaks about men's issues, he must only be speaking about white men's issues. But I don't think this is necessarily true. There are black men and Mexican men and Asian men who get circumcised in the United States. The criminal sentencing gap almost certainly affects black men more than it affects white men. Homelessness, suicide, these are issues that affect all men, not just straight white men. I hear about women's issues in the media all the time. I don't remember the last time I ever heard a campaign trying to raise awareness for male mental health, male suicide, male homelessness, circumcision, ending the gender inequality of the draft. Most men are too afraid of being considered sexist assholes or whiny crybabies to speak up about these issues, but I'm not. I've been called an asshole and a whiny crybaby most of my life. These words have stopped really having any meaning or effect on me, so why wouldn't I use my position of privilege to speak up for other people who are less privileged than I am? For most of my life, I've tried to raise awareness of the issues of women and the issues of the LGBT community. When it comes to abortion, I'm pro-choice. I believe that it's her body, her choice. That's why now, when it comes to the issue of circumcision, I'm pro-choice. I believe that it's his body, his choice. I believe in equal treatment of people of all genders, which is why I believe that women should be paid the same amount as men, and why I believe that men should not be punished longer than women just for being men. The truth is, it's because I used to be a feminist that I have now become an MRA. It's because I realized that too many men see each other as sexual competition rather than brothers that I've decided it's time to speak up and encourage men to band together and recognize that we each are in this together. But if you believe that we need to teach men not to rape, while at the same time arguing that women can't rape a man, if you believe that it's your body, your choice, but you try to excuse the lack of choice that infant males have over what happens to their genitals, if you promote an ideology that says that you can't be sexist to men, if you personally feel threatened by the idea of vulnerable and sensitive men being empathetic to the issues of other vulnerable men, then yes, you should be afraid. We are your enemies. We will confront you. We are coming for you. Being a feminist taught me to confront sexism wherever and whenever I see it. To me, it's a tragedy that now I'm forced to confront sexism within the feminist community. It should be a tragedy to you too.